What's up, guys? Hope everybody's doing well so far. Let's cut straight to the chase. This is my third and final video on the Undertale 10th anniversary streams and all the new content and stuff that happened in those streams. Today I'm talking about the new Gerson dialogue that happened at the end of the second stream in our second visit to the old home area in the ruins, in which Gerson tells us some of his thoughts on what actually happened from his experience in the human versus monsters war, his thoughts on magic and like what happened to magic that could potentially tell us more about what happened to magic in the light world of Deltarune, which is the point of today's video. So stay tuned to stick around, and I have plenty to say about that, including a pretty compelling theory, in my opinion, as to what happened to Deltarune's magic. Before I get into that, though, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It helps me out a lot and is greatly appreciated. And also be sure to join the Discord server if you have not already as well. It's called the Fruit Basket. There's a link in the channel bio and down in the description below. We're currently holding our third art challenge, in which the top 10 competitors will win free Discord Nitro for a period of time. So join the server, drop your art, interact with fans, and you could win some free Nitro. But now on to the main topic of today's video, which is Gerson's new lore. What do we know? Like, what all did Gerson say in this new dialogue? So, in the second stream, as I said, there was some more dialogue from the GOAT, Gerson, who has been carrying Deltarune theories recently, from his lore in Chapter 4 regarding the prophecy, and talking about his Lord of the Hammer chapters with, the Field of Pink and Gold, and the author fell into his own creation, and all that kind of stuff. Like, he is carrying the lore right now, and he continues to do so in the new anniversary content. So, in the new area called Old Home, he appears after we break the barrier, and he reveals a lot about the war, and about himself as well, and kind of where he was during that war. In this dialogue, Gerson reveals that the history books regarding the war are likely inaccurate. He says that it wasn't really written down properly. And of course, he knows this because he was there during the war. He's old, I'm old. He's a very old guy. So he was there during the war. Oh, he was a war hero, you could say. He was the Hammer of Justice, and he knows what actually happened. And he suggests that the books, maybe they were skewed a little to paint things in a light that didn't actually happen, to make monster kind seem more like victims, possibly. Is kind of how I interpreted it. He even says that there were monsters and humans on both sides of the war. Some of his best war buddies were humans. I know this is like kind of controversial. There are people who believe that he potentially had a romantic partner on the human side of the war, or who was a human potentially. Whether or not that was romantic or like a mentor-mentee kind of thing, there's someone who was important to him that he saw in the mage outfit, in like the cloak that sealed the monsters away and made the barrier. And he comments that he kind of like felt proud of them during that moment. So if that was, like his spouse, his mentor, his mentee, either way, the sides were not very clear, is the point. Is that there were humans and monsters on both sides, and lots of humans and monsters that were friends got split up during the war because of circumstances. But the most important part of this to me is that he kind of explains what happens to magic and how the barrier was made. So, a question that people have had for a while, for example, friend and moderator on the server, Coxloff, sent an email to tobyfox like 10 years ago and actually got a response regarding this question about how could humans create the barrier if they don't have magic? Like, how did they steal the monsters away with magic if humans don't have magic? And Gerson actually answers that question here, which I will go ahead and tell you. In that email, Toby said, well, use your imagination. Well, he finally gave us potentially an answer to that here. So Gerson says that humans used all of their magic in creating the barrier, which answers that age-old question. So now we know that humans potentially did have access to magic at some point in time, or at least like some kind of way of casting spells, whether or not that was like a part of their innate being, the way it is for monsters that are made of magic, or if they just had like an auxiliary external source that allowed them to use magic that got used up through that act. Either way, they did have access to it at some point, and it went away through the creation of the barrier. And now knowing this, I have a few theories regarding the nature of magic in Deltarune, especially in relation to the Dark Worlds. The first thing that I want to mention is that there's always been a parallel to me between the Dark World and the Underground. Now, obviously, you fall into both. The Dark World is below the Light World, same way that the Underground is below the surface. And both are kind of similar and at the same time contrasted through how you use a soul to interact with them. So the barrier uses human souls to pass through or break it, the same way that a dark fountain is sealed with a human soul. So the barrier is broken with souls, which is like the opposite, because the barrier was created as a seal, right? But you seal the fountains. So it's a little bit like the reverse, but it's still like a parallel there, that you need a soul in order to interact with the separation between the light world and the dark world, and the surface and the underground. Also, the dark world lets monsters use magic, just like they can in Undertale. So, in Deltarune's light world, not only can humans not use magic, it seems like monsters also can't, which I'll explain in a minute. That's a pretty common, like, accepted kind of headcanon, basically canon at this point, that monsters cannot use magic in the light world, which they can use magic in Undertale, just, in the underground at all times, right? So, what happened to the monsters' magic in Deltarune, because they can get it back in the dark world, right? So here I go with the no magic in the light world point. Deltarune heavily implies that the nature of monsters is different than in Undertale. So there's questions about bleeding, like does Susie bleed? Obviously she does at this point, because we see it in Chapter 4. Sans bleeding is Sans from Deltarune, this and that. That's a whole different box of worms, or can of worms rather. I have a whole video on that actually. That was pre-Chapter 4, so don't worry about watching that, to be honest, but there's also Toriel's stove, which heavily implies that she doesn't have fire magic anymore because she uses the actual stove, compared to Undertale's flavor text for the stove, in which it says that she doesn't use the stove, she uses fire magic. So this to me is, like, obviously it's a pretty minor text box, it's flavor text for a stove, but tobyfox very intentionally made these two different when he could have made them the same thing, So this to me suggests that there is no magic in the light world because they don't even use it for day-to-day conveniences. They just don't have it, right? For various reasons, which I will try to explain here shortly. I believe that the dark world is a seal. A seal that either seals away magic or something else, but either way, the magic is either used up in making the seal the same way it was in Undertale's barrier, or that the seal itself is containing the magic in the dark world. Now, I think that I may have watched a theory video a long time ago about this, like similar concept. I don't remember who it was by or like what it was all about necessarily. So it's not a 100% original idea, I'm pretty sure, but relating this back to what Gerson said, it actually makes a lot of sense. It is reasonable to me that the absence of magic is related to the dark world because that's basically the only two things that are different. Well, obviously there's more, but the two major things about Deltarune's universe that are different from Undertale's is that there's the dark world exists, and that magic is not present in the light world / the surface. So it's not too extreme to me to assume that these two things are connected if they're the only two major differences about the universe that it takes place in. Furthermore, Gerson stating that magic was used up in making the barrier, to me indicates that magic was used up in making the dark world. Either magic was sealed in the dark world, or something else was sealed using up magic, as I said previously. So, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on a future slide, but potentially magic was dangerous, or it's what led to the human-monster war. Maybe humans still had issue with the monsters, or vice versa, because of how they used magic. And the solution to not having the war, the peaceful solution, was to seal the magic under the ground in creating the dark world, which explains why the dark worlds have magic. So, as far as my reasoning goes, which hopefully is pretty clear at this point, this seems logical given the parallels between the barrier and dark fountains. It takes a human soul to cross the barrier, and it takes 7 to break the barrier. Human souls contain determination. It takes determination to puncture the seal containing the dark world, and a human soul to seal the fountain. So that's a pretty clear parallel to me between the dark fountains and barriers with the souls and determination and how they kind of interact. That makes this theory kind of make sense to me. So my conclusion here is that, given the parallels and the contrast between the underground and the barrier, and the dark world and the fountains, and Gerson's new dialogue, I think that we can all conclude that magic is not in the light world because it got sealed away in the dark world. And here I bring up these 2 points that I had previously. maybe it was too dangerous for its own good. Like, maybe it led to a lot of conflicts that could potentially turn into a violent war, which we see happen in Undertale. Maybe it got too dangerous and it was put away. Maybe that prevented the war. What if that's the one crux that changes Deltarune's universe from Undertale's, is that moment where, instead of going to war, monsters and humans simply decide to seal away magic, creating the Dark Worlds, and then thus taking magic away from the humans and monsters, preventing the war from happening, leading into us seeing Hometown as we see it on the surface. Monsters are still on the surface, living their own lives up there, and also leading to the Dark Worlds existing in Deltarune. So that's my theory about, what Gerson said and how that potentially relates to Deltarune lore. Do you believe it? Do you not? Either way, it's up to you. I'd love to hear comments about what you think about it. Am I insane? Does it make sense? All that jazz down below. Well, yeah, thanks for watching the video. If you made it this far in the video, then you must like the video, so why not like the video? And also a big shout out to all the supporters on Ko-Fi, Patreon, and YouTube, with a big shout out to Tybee and Hufflepuff Prefect for being my top supporters. That in mind, love you guys. Be safe, be smart, don't be stupid, and have a great rest of your day.